What do you think is the future of Pune real estate?
Great question. I think to answer that question fully, I think you need to understand where we've come from. The city will always remain city because it is the city. I mean, somebody living in the Pate, somebody living in Deccan, Nagar, all of those areas, they will not leave those areas, right? But when you're talking about the new growth centers that are forming,
so what were the challenges making Honeycomb?
Right. So, frankly speaking, I think when something new is introduced, either to the market or to any set of rules that you're changing, whereas
the taller you go, the more luxury you
get. Correct.
That was the luxury.
That was the correct. So, but now with this,
tell us what was your inspiration for this project?
Wow, so that I think the story started when I was still in university, in the Architectural Association School of Architecture in London. I had an academic project location which was in Hong Kong.
Hello Upscale people, I am Salman Sheikh, and in today's video, we'll learn about Anand's thought process behind the creation of Eminence. Why he did what he did, what was the thought process, what was the target audience, configuration, sizes, design and more. Anand Naiknavare, the head of business process at Naiknavare Developers and the visionary architect and developer behind the extraordinary project Eminence. Let us welcome Anand Naiknavare.
Hi Salman.
Tell us something about the project.
Eminence is a highly ambitious project which we had conceived. It's in the heart of Viman Nagar. I think the location sort of speaks for itself, The project is spread over about 1.25 acres of land, and it's got very, very few 47 units that are available for the residents. So it's a very small community, but it's a very bespoke architectural design, and owing to its location, it is going to become a very, very well-known landmark in the area, we're sure.
Surely. Talking about the fewer units, I had a client once inquired. I told him, it's a long time backstory. The specific requirement, they had a good budget of 4.5 crore, but the specific requirement they gave me was, I don't want to get into a project or buy in a project which has more than 50 units in it. What was your thought when you said we had fewer units while designing this project?
Right.
What gentry was in mind? What was the configuration in mind?
So I think it's a very good question, and whoever this buyer was a very, he knew what he wanted. I think, having done projects which are very few in number with almost reaching township kind of numbers of 3,000, 4,000 units as well, I can definitely say that within smaller communities, the social fabric of the community is very strong. Everybody knows each other. Everybody knows what each other, what they like, what they don't like. There is a certain social code that is created in that community. That social code allows for them to, thoroughly enjoy cultural activities, social events. If it's a community, it's a diverse community. You can have, celebrations that are cross communities. So I think that bonhomie that is that sort of gets created in a smaller community, right, is something that is very desirable.
You get a like-minded gentry.
You get a like-minded gentry, that's for sure. You also have, a better connection, what we say, what we call a connection of the mind, connection of the soul. So all of these things happen better in a smaller community.
So what was the thought process behind the design and configuration while doing this project? So for a fewer units.
Right. So when we looked at the location, because real estate finally, is driven by its location, we realized that, of course, Viman Nagar is a very upmarket area.
It is.
So without a doubt, we were focusing on slightly larger sized inventory units. 3-bedroom was absolutely the minimum that we wanted to introduce in the project. And 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom and 4.5 bedrooms.
So what were the sizes?
Right. So the 3 bedrooms are also very large. They're 2,300 square feet. And this goes all the way up to almost 4,000 square feet.
So 2,300 carpet was the minimum for a 3-bed?
Sellable. So if you look at the carpet, It will be about 1700 or so.
1800.
1800.
Okay. And the larger 4-bed is?
So the larger 4-bed, the carpet will be about 3,300 to 3,500 as well.
This is with the servants area.
That's right. That's right. It's with the staff quarters.
Okay. Okay. Tell us, what was your inspiration for this project?
Wow. So that, I think the story started when I was still in university, in the Architectural Association School of Architecture in London. I had an academic project location which was in Hong Kong. So as we all know, Hong Kong is a very high-rise city, right? I mean,
but very compact.
Very compact. I mean, which is exactly why it's very high-rise, right? So interestingly enough, Hong Kong also has a very mountainous terrain. So it has a very high-end neighborhood, a residential neighborhood prima facie, which is called Happy Valley.
Okay.
So that was one of the locations that I had chosen for myself for an academic project. Where the idea was to try and introduce a new housing typology to the city by utilizing the mountainous terrain of the city. So in effect, the concept was to add more, land to the city. And when you are talking about a mountainous terrain, you have to be able to really negotiate with the mountain, right? And when you do that, the hexagon was the best way to do it.
Okay.
In my research, as it was demonstrated in that.
Okay.
The reason for that is because the hexagon sort of nests very well. It packs very well with each other. Okay. And when you nest it along anything, it creates a nice choreography. Okay. So when
you say nests,
nest meaning, so if you have one
in a hive,
correct, the hive pattern.
Hive pattern, yeah.
So if you put a square next to each other, you will only have 3 sides that are exposed. If it's a square which is between 2 squares, you will have only 2 sides that are exposed. Whereas in a hexagon, when you have 2 hexagons that are attached to each other, which is also required for ease of construction, you have a lot of faces that are exposed to the external environment. So that allows you more openings, it allows you better ventilation, it allows for a better quality of space. We also did a lot of luminance studies in which we demonstrated that the quality of light was improving significantly by virtue of using the hexagon.
Amazing.
So when we did that, and we sort of had the floor plates moving forward and then moving back, so it created a very interesting spatial geometry. And that living in a building which is, not a vertical extrusion, because as developers, we've been doing this for many years now. Everybody's been looking at a plan, you extrude it vertically, and that's the start and end of it, right? Whereas
the taller you go, the more luxury you go.
Correct.
That was the luxury.
That was the correct. So, but now with this change in design, where you're not just extruding 4 walls, right, and making it a vertical tower, the idea was to add something that was very unique to the Pune skyline, or say the variety of projects that you have. And I think we've been able to largely do that with this project.
Hence the honeycomb design.
It
was actually a very bold move to have honeycomb design.
That's right.
In a market where we are more into squarish design.
That's right.
So what were the challenges making honeycomb?
Right. So, frankly speaking, I think when something new is introduced, either to the market or to any set of rules that you're changing, there is usually a curiosity. There was a curiosity from the channel partner fraternity. There was a curiosity around it from the customers. But when we were able to demonstrate that both on the structural front and on the quality of lights, we did all these technical studies. We were able to improve the quality of the space. That sort of resistance to hexagon, what is it? That sort of we were able to remove altogether that slight hesitation in the minds of the buyers that, or with receiving this new idea had. So I think that was one. I think because of the nature of the structure, one of the challenges was surely that the beams and the RCC was very heavy.
Okay.
So the density of the steel that was going into every beam, every column was a lot more.
It is added to the construction cost.
That's right, of course. But that comes with the price that you pay for luxury, right? Yes. So I think that was a challenge because the contractors also had a very tough time. We had to have more needles to allow the concrete to really go through the dense steel. So there was those challenges. I think another very welcome challenge, I would say, is that we've utilized a technology called building information modeling.
Building
Information modeling.
What
It's
is
called BIM.
BIM?
Now, BIM is no longer, I would say, a new concept, but at the time when we did it 3-4 years ago, it was very much a new concept. And
What is the technology?
right,
Or what is
so
the concept?
building information modeling is a tool which brings together all the design stakeholders that are working on the building. So, say the RCC consultant, the architect, you have your mechanical, electrical, plumbing contractors and consultants. Everybody is working on one single virtual model.
Okay.
Now, what that does is all the information of the building is assimilated in a single digital copy of itself.
Okay. It's kind of a CRM for.
It's like a model. It's a 3D model.
It's a 3D model.
3D model. So anything that is above, a 0.5 dimension, right, is modeled in that virtual space.
Wow.
And then you run a clash detection. So anything, a pipe running through a beam is caught before you go on site, right? So all of these things for us to do when it was not at all available in the construction industry ecosystem was very difficult because our contractors were confused. Our consultants were saying, what is this? How do we work with this? So we had to develop the ecosystem of BIM for this smallish project, And I think that was a very fun challenge that we encountered along the way.
With only 1.2 acres land parcel and 47 units, a configuration of 3, 4 and 4.5 BHK. What was your thought process with the layout?
Very interesting question. I think while we obviously talk a lot about the architectural elevation and how the whole building looks like, I think the more important question is that architects need to resolve is how does the layout come together? I think when we started working on this layout, one of the things that we always kept in mind was that we have to give enough emphasis to the outdoor spaces that are attached to the house, right? Like this terrace garden that you're sitting in. The reason for that is because in Pune we have fantastic weather. And if you are not able to allow your occupiers of the building to enjoy that, then I think we're not doing justice to our location of the city, So I think that was an important consideration. About, I would say, 18 to 20% of the total flat area is dedicated towards, outdoor spaces like terraces and balconies. So that's an important consideration in the layout. The other important consideration is that when somebody is buying into a large unit like this, right, there are usually multiple generations that live together.
Yes.
And I think when you look at the great Indian family, right, and how we are sort of
the
ideal large Indian family that we usually have, people generally tend to really live with each other. They coexist. There's a lot of exchange. So we created this common space that is connected to, of course, the large outdoor space, the living room, the dining room, and the family room. With a collapsible kind of a structure for the family room, we are in a position to sort of unite those spaces in case there is a very large event, which the family can, really...
The entire family.
That's right. That's right. So instead of compartmentalizing all the spaces, a closed kitchen, we connected all the spaces in the center, of which we had all the rooms that were planned. So the rooms get enough privacy, but all the common areas of the household are cohesively connected together.
So the ideal Indian family, there's parents, our generation,
right,
and the children.
That's
so
right.
The bedroom placement what you have, is one bedroom is one side, 3 bedrooms are on the other side.
That's right.
So let us say if parents and our generation are staying, at least 2 families, 2 couples they have their own privacy,
own spaces as well,
own
privacy,
own privacy
spaces
also.
That's
was an amazing thing,
right,
in a layout,
right,
in a residential layout,
right.
The buyer does not just buy a home, they look at the entire project. What was your thought process behind the project abilities?
Great. So I think now in Pune, as developers, we all understand that this is a very important aspect of why somebody would make that purchase decision. Also, the trends keep changing, so we have to ensure that whatever we do provide in our projects, stands the test of time. So here, of course, we've got our little gardening space, massage room, basketball court, all of these regular
half
half basketball court. We do have all of these amenities already planned. But I think what sort of elevated the project is its suspended swimming pool on the
suspended swimming pool.
rooftop. Yeah.
Okay.
So between the two buildings, we've got a suspended swimming pool where we've also been able to have a transparent flooring,
For
right,
the
for
suspended
the
pool.
actual suspended swimming pool. So when somebody's swimming in the pool, right, they're going to have a phenomenal experience.
I don't think any project in Pune has suspended swimming.
Right. I don't
We've
think so
seen-
either.
We have all seen in the movies
Right.
the transparent
Transparent
the
pool,
glass floor for the
glass
swimming
pool. Yeah. Yeah.
But nobody has it in Pune.
Right.
You,
So
you were the first one to discover.
correct. That's right. Because I thought that, you know, when we are talking about the two amenity spaces, one is of course the podium, and then the other one is a fully landscaped rooftop. Both of them had to have something very unique going on. The swimming pool, of course, does that. It also adds to the identity of the project, like you rightly, pointed out. But we also have, a very large emphasis on the landscape. The landscape was done by a very famous architect from New Zealand, and I think it's a very small consideration in the whole scheme of things, but it has the most impact in the project.
About the landscape.
Landscape, yeah.
I think landscape adds a lot of value to the
Value,
project.
absolutely.
Lot of value to the project. So I had one client. He said, "We will never use the amenity, but we want all the amenity. I might not use it. My parents may use it. My children may use it. So for the elder generation, landscape is what attracts them the most.
That's right. It also brings
even
people
for
out.
the children, even for the children, I mean, the play area, the landscape, the greenery, you have planned it amazing. As a developer and the architect of the project, how does Eminence change the landscape of urban living?
So I think I'll just give you a small example of what I had one of my professors from my university. He, of course, he's a big urbanist architect in the UK, and he had visited the project when it was still under construction, and he had seen the whole, the model and all of the buildings coming up. And to my surprise, of course, he's my tutor, right? So I was of course quite happy to receive this compliment. He said that this project that you've designed is actually, even challenging the thresholds or the design thresholds of the world over there, right? Because it adds such a refreshing look to the entire, building landscapes that we have here in Pune. So from that point of view, of course, it's doing it's breaking the monotony of all the the buildings that you are used to seeing. Yes. So I think that's one thing I would like to say. When you talk about the actual city, right, in India, because of the population, more and more density is going to have to be built up in projects.
Yes.
When we look at Eminence, it's one of its kind because of the fact that it will never be a very dense project. It was always planned to be a low density project. So that in itself will offer a very different lifestyle to its users. So I think that experience will be a unique experience for its users, and to that extent, I would say that it has, allowed us this transformation.
Amazing. As a developer in Pune real estate for close to 4 decades, what do you think is the future of Pune real estate?
Great question. I think to answer that question fully, I think you need to understand where we've come from. I think in urban India as a whole, the story of FSI has been largely responsible for how the cities have developed, as it is in the other parts of the world as well. Originally, right, FSI was a very limited supply, constricted kind of an affair. Over time, and that obviously caused a very high real estate cost for the average consumer. Over the years, the government, of course, started to realize that we need to build more and more density into our cities. So they started to make FSI available in larger and larger amounts and quantities. When that started to happen, developers were faced with this situation where there was now enough competition, enough supply, and the consumers were able to start choosing, right? when that happened, there was a natural shift towards higher quality designs, right? A better quality construction, more appropriate consumer appropriate kind of products had started to come out. Now we're at a place where there is supply, there is qualified supply, I would say, in the city. Most certainly, there is now enough choice for the consumer. So the consumer can virtually choose going to you or you. When that happens, the quality of the real estate has taken
I
a
think
very
this has happened
positive
in
turn.
last 15 years.
That's right. Now
15
going into the future, now that I've discussed a little bit of the past and where we're at, going into the future, I think it's very important to understand that we will have a high-rise city coming our way. When we have a high-rise city, we're talking of a lot of volume being created in the city centers. So when we're doing that, we're also talking of a lot of mixed-use towers. In the same tower, you'll have a hotel, you'll have high-end residences, you'll have, sometimes
Commercial.
social housing,
Commercial
commercial also. So it's a mix, and this is what has happened in the West, right? So
It is.
we will see more mixed-use towers. It will allow people to live closer to, the city center. It will bring in a focus on the beautification, development of the city. And I think all of these positive changes will have a very positive ripple effect on the real estate as a whole.
So this would only be in the city center or even the suburbs. We have different pockets for suburbs. East
That's
Pune,
right.
West Pune.
That's right.
Kharadi has its own market.
Yeah.
Baner Balewadi has its own market.
Yes.
So will it be same for the city center and the suburbs, or do you think?
So very interesting. I think largely because there are different growth drivers in each of these micro markets, right?
Yes.
The city will always remain city because
City will always
it is the city. I mean, somebody living in the Pate, somebody living in Deccan, Bhosle Nagar, all of those
They don't want
areas,
to leave that.
they will not leave
Never.
those areas,
Never.
right? But when you're talking about the new growth centers that are forming, there is enough reason for people to also live there. So I think the density that we're talking of will be equally distributed within the PMC limits and some of the nicer metropolitan regions of the city too, where infrastructure, travel corridors have been developed, access and commutes are not so complicated anymore. So even those regions will flourish. Metro will definitely help.
Metro will help.
Those areas and those micro markets flourish more.
Thank you, Anand, for taking the time to share your insights with us today. And to our viewers, stay tuned for more fascinating glimpses in the world of real estate. If you have seen the beautiful Eminence project in Viman Nagar, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Until then, see you in the next video.